Dragon's Dogma 2. Uh, this game released literally yesterday, and it has been getting review bombed pretty fucking hard. Um, 39% of the 13,147 reviews for the game are mostly negative. So that is not good. Now, I was actually fairly excited for Dragon's Dogma 2. I even thought about pre-ordering it. Thank God I didn't. But yeah, I even thought about pre-ordering it. The game looks fucking awesome, and yeah. But there's a number of issues that are resulting in this mostly negative review bomb. One of which is it incorporates de novo, which is really bad. De novo fucking sucks. Um, so there's that. And then also, the game apparently runs like dog shit for anyone who isn't using like a fucking state of the art NASA computer that has a 4090 in it. So, yeah. But those those are not what the conversation is mainly revolving around with regards to Dragon's Dogma 2. The conversation is mostly revolving around this. This stuff is all uh, it is all microtransactions that are in this game. Now, this is a single player game. This game costs $70, and they include all of these microtransactions that are, pay to skip or pay to, expedite or whatever you want to call it. And in some cases, you know, it's pay to not be inconvenienced, I would say. And I think foundationally, and this is my criticism. Okay, I don't speak for anyone else apart from myself. But this shit is unacceptable in any single player game, whether it be Ubisoft, whether it be Monster Hunter, or Monster Hunter isn't really single player, but whether it be the original Dragon's Dogma, because apparently that had this shit in it too, whether it be Resident Evil, it's all bad, okay? It is all bad, and you should not support it. And that's why I personally am not going to be buying this game, okay? Now, there has been a lot of misinformation regarding a lot of this stuff, like, your character editor, that, I guess, and like a lot of the stuff is easily accessible in the game according to people who have played it. I had a conversation with Super Rad while he was streaming about it, and he was kind of laying it out and talking about it. But my issue is that they marketed this game with the removal of fast travel, okay, saying that no, there's not going to be fast travel. Oh, but there is. You just have to pay $3. So that is a big fucking problem in my eyes. That we're essentially removing convenience features and then selling them back to the player, right? And this strikes me as more egregious than a lot of other microtransactions and a lot of other games. In my view, principally, I believe that any game that is a single player game that sells fucking microtransactions like this should not be bought, and they should not be supported at all. Now, this doesn't mean that you should buy the game and just not purchase. No, you should not buy this game. You should not support this. You should you want to know how you tell a company that you do not like what they're doing? You don't buy the game. You don't give them any money, because any amount of money, let's be real here. These things are, yeah, they're pretty dirt fucking cheap. $2.99, $3, whatever, a dollar, whatever it might be. Yeah, they're dirt fucking cheap. Okay, but in my view, the perverse incentive that's been created here, and it's pretty demonstrable, I'd say, with regards to the fast travel, selling fucking fast travel in a single player game, after marketing the game as not having fast travel, that is an incredibly perverse incentive that they have created at the foundational level of this game. The game is fundamentally flawed in this way. That some things like the fast travel are inaccessible unless you pay money. So you're paying for convenience in a single player game. Now, Capcom also has a record of being really against mods. I wonder why. They're really against mods. Because all of this shit would be fucking worthless. Okay? It would be fucking worthless. And it's already pretty fucking worthless anyway, according to many of the people who've actually played the game. Now, I can't speak to them myself, obviously, since I haven't played it. But yeah. Now, this sort of brings me to, some of the other games that that also have this kind of stuff, whether it be Devil May Cry, whether it be whatever the fuck this game is, Monster Hunter, Tales of Arise, whether it be Final Fantasy, it doesn't matter. All of it is bad, and, I think a lot of people are, really perplexed as to why people are so mad about Dragon's Dogma 2, when I feel like they really shouldn't be. This is a single-player open world RPG that is narrative driven. Much like, I guess, it's its own kind of thing, I guess, but like Elden Ring, or not. It's not like Elden Ring, but I guess the open world and that kind of stuff, it is similar. But none of this is new for Japanese developed games, but Japanese developed games typically don't have the same type of reach that a Skyrim or a or like a Starfield, or let's look it up. How many copies of Skyrim have been sold? 60 million. Okay, how many copies of, let's see, Persona 5? 7.2 million. That's a JRPG. All right. Well, how about how many copies did Dragon's Dogma 1 sell? 7.9 million units. So again, these games are an order of magnitude more niche than most of the biggest Western, single player games, like Red Dead Redemption 2. How many did that sell? 23 million copies in 2018. It's reached 61 million copies, okay? 61 million. Now, the only counter I've heard of this is, oh, what about Pokemon? What about Pokemon? Pokemon doesn't have microtransactions. It's not a JRPG how, fucking Persona 5 or Final Fantasy is a JRPG, okay? And how we're comparing these things just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me at all. I was arguing with Super Rat about, these things aren't really mainstream. They're not. How many did Resident Evil sell? I guess 4 was the newest one. Remake. It sold 6.5 million copies, which, is a respectable amount. But how many copies did Starfield sell? I guess there isn't an official number on it. Bethesda reported over having 10 million players across all platforms. And that was probably the worst performing Bethesda game in a while. What about Fallout 4? Fallout 4 sold 13.51 million at the time. 12 million is what this is saying. So, it's double what, the original Dragon's Dogma, almost. And double what, like, Persona 5, double fucking Resident Evil 4. It is an order of magnitude larger. The mainstay sort of Western RPGs, and even for like a game like Elden Ring, which is a Japanese game, it doesn't have all the bullshit microtransactions, and it sold 23 million fucking copies. Okay, people love a game that doesn't nickel and fucking dime them the entire time, or even give you the option to do that. And in my view, again, the perverse incentive that's created by even having this shit in the game at a foundational level whilst the game is being created. So they're creating these games in mind, having in mind that they're going to be selling microtransactions for, whatever it might be. Now, this allows for them to create the game in such a way that essentially causes inconvenience for the player in order to sell some of these microtransactions. I think the fast travel thing is a perfect example. Now, and an argument that Super Rad made is that fucking paid mods for Fallout and Skyrim and I guess maybe even Starfield whenever. I'm not sure that they have them yet. But, paid mods for these, they're not comparable because those games were not created with those systems in mind. Neither was Starfield, even though Fallout 4 and Skyrim both have paid mods. These aren't the same things. Fundamentally, they are not the same things. Okay? Like, all right. So let's let me think of another like mainstay franchise, I guess. Let's think about it for a second. Like Mass Effect. Let's do Mass Effect. Mass Effect 1 sold 14 million copies in 2014. That's a lot of fucking copies, dude. Mass Effect 3 sales. I'm not even sure. Doesn't seem like there's any good number on it. Oh. Over 20 million copies. I mean, they're orders of magnitude larger. So, if you're perplexed at all by why people are so upset about Dragon's Dogma, it's because people just got done. Oh yeah, fuck. The biggest example is fucking Baldur's Gate 3, okay? That's the biggest example. How many copies did that fucker sell? It sold over 10 million units. I mean, it is a CRPG. CRPGs don't sell 10 million fucking copies. They don't. It is literally probably the first CRPG ever to fucking hit 10 million. Okay? Oh, estimates have been 7.5 to 20 million units. That is an insane fucking number, dude. An insane fucking number. And they're just not comparable in terms of the reach that these games have. He was bringing up a game called Tales of Vesperia. This game sold 1.5 million copies, and apparently they nickel and dime the fuck out of you in that game, according to him. Okay, nobody bought this fucking game. 1.5 million people is nobody. Okay, that it's not anybody. There's not a whole lot of people playing that fucking game. Monster Hunter, how many people play Monster Hunter? Ooh, actually, a lot of people play Monster Hunter. Ooh. Sold 19.6 million copies. I'd be curious to know how many of those were like NA versus or NA/EU, like the West versus in Japan. But I guess that's a game. That's a game that you got that one. I can give it to you. But like generally speaking, JRPGs and a lot of the Japanese games don't sell a lot. They don't, Like yeah, they're big franchises in their own rights, but when you start comparing them to an Elder Scrolls or a Fallout or a Red Dead or a Baldur's Gate, it's incomparable. They have an incomparable level of reach, especially in the West. Because these are Japanese games, and I'm sure they're going to be selling better in Japan than they are in the West. So that and fuck, another game, Hogwarts Legacy. That game sold a fuck ton. 24 million copies, making it one of the best-selling video games of all time. These are games that don't nickel and dime you. Okay? So when the majority of people are playing games that don't include these sorts of microtransactions, when they get a game that costs 70 fucking dollars and then includes all of these microtransactions, yeah, nobody wants to buy that shit. I guess the our version of that is Ubisoft. So like, let's see, how well did Valhalla sell? Assassin's Creed Valhalla sales. 1.8 million copies in the first week. It made over $1 billion, but 20 million players. A lot of copies. A lot of copies. But even with Assassin's Creed, people are getting fucking tired of it. Let's see. Let's see the newest one. Mirage sold 5 million copies about. That's kind of what I'm gathering here. It didn't sell well because people get tired of playing single player games and getting soul fucking progression. Okay? Now that's not what's happening in Dragon's Dogma's case. It's much more so pay for convenience stuff. But you know, it's bad. It's bad. Okay. Now, obviously, I believe that the reviewers should have mentioned this stuff. Now, I truly believe that Super Rad in particular didn't know that it would be such a big issue, since, you know, to his understanding and from his perspective, you know, he's already played a bunch of this shit. It's kind of normalized to him. It's not normal to the rest of us, but you know what? You know what? I don't think he was being dishonest in his analysis of should I mention it or should I not, and especially if they aren't super consequential on the game, which according to him they aren't. And according to a lot of the people who actually play the game, they aren't. You know, so you know, I will give that grace to Super Rad in particular, and to, I guess, a lot of these guys. You know, I'm sure a lot of them didn't think that it would be a big deal. Okay, but you know, when Baldur's Gate 3 came out and this was their message: no, there are no in-game purchases in our game. We believe in providing a complete and immersive gaming experience without the need for additional purchases. I think a lot of people really resonated with that message, okay? A lot of people really resonated with that message, okay? And that's, you know, part of the reason why it sold so well, you know, amongst other things, amongst it literally being one of the best games released that year. But it also didn't fucking nickel and dime you. So a lot of people were like, awesome, fucking brilliant, dude. But yeah, I mean, that's sort of the controversy about Dragon's Dogma. You know, it is getting review bombed pretty fucking heavily, and I think deservedly so, because a lot of the stuff was not. I didn't know. I was excited for this game. I almost fucking pre-ordered this game, and now I probably will never buy this game unless they remove this shit. And you know what? Maybe now is the time that Capcom gets the message that, hey, people aren't going to put up with this bullshit anymore. Okay? You know, they've gotten away with it for far too long, in my view. Trust me. I have never bought a Resident Evil game in my life. I have not bought a fucking Monster Hunter in my life. I have not bought any of these types of games that include these shitty fucking microtransactions in them. It's just not what I do, and it's not what I fucking stand for, and I wholeheartedly fuck it. It is disgusting to me, frankly. Okay? So, anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say about it. I mean, you know, I do hope Capcom gets the message that, hey, maybe we should remove this shit from our single-player RPG. You know, I think you can get away with it in some cases. You know, certainly, maybe they've gotten away with it in a lot of cases. But you know, once you start appealing to a broader market which I think Dragon's Dogma has always had the capabilities of doing, of appealing to a broader market, because it is a, you know, Western fantasy themed kind of RPG, you know. Uh, so I do think it does have broad appeal, right? And I think the response to this game has shown that it does have that broad appeal. But it doesn't make it any less disappointing, and it doesn't make it any less acceptable or any more acceptable that this stuff is in the game. Okay. Anyway, that's pretty much my thoughts on it. Let me know what you think down below, and yeah, if you like this video, subscribe and like it if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, and yeah, I've been Exodus. Have a good one.